My name is Christy Busby, and you are about to listen to the next episode of my podcast called F.A.T.E, From Atheism to Enlightenment. So come on in, join me. We're going to talk about it all, from atheism to enlightenment. Alrighty, guys, here we go. Get ready, and welcome to your F.A.T.E. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of F.A.T.E. How's everybody doing today? On today's episode, I have returning champion, my sister, Amy Prestridge. Joining us in this party is going to be Charity Mohorn. She is one of Amy's Soul Tribe sisters, and we are going to be talking about spiritual awakenings, near-death experiences, energy healing, losing your church and finding your tribe, and maybe dabbling in a little bit of channeling. So it is going to be a jam-packed episode. I'm very excited to have these lovely ladies on the show. Ladies, welcome to your F.A.T.E, my friends. How you doing today?
Good. Doing well.
Amy, welcome back.
Thank you. Hi, Amy. Hi, Charity.
So, we're all joined here on the this platform today to kind of talk about spiritual development, people awakening to who we are, what we are, and Charity. As I understand it, you have your own significant story to tell about your journey here. And you had a near-death experience. Why don't we? I love to talk about a near-death experience.
Yes.
So it's a
Agree.
great way to open up the show. Why don't you, tell us a little bit about yourself? I think you're out of Arkansas.
Yes.
Yes, you're in Arkansas. Just so I'm in LA, Amy's in Ohio, and she's in Arkansas. So couldn't be more three different states out.
Or diverse cultures, right?
Oh, yeah.
Very diverse cultures
Super.
that we live in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us just a little bit about yourself and what your experiences were with your near death?
Sure. And if y'all have any questions while I, go through this, I know Amy knows me very well. But if you have any questions, Christy, just interrupt. It's,
Oh.
fine.
Oh, I will.
I know. I want you to. Okay.
You see, I bet you it's not gonna that's what I was talking about with the laughing. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
That's okay. So let's see. Where do I start? I am first off. I was raised in the Church of Christ. I've got to get that out. That's going to be very important as we talk this hour. If my first words probably in the womb were Church of Christ, because my mother was repeatedly saying Church of Christ, Church of Christ, Church of Christ. Okay. So that kind of puts it there. So, my world revolved around the Church of Christ. So that dictated a lot of my path. My path was, I didn't realize this until now in my 50s, but then I didn't realize that my path was laid out for me. It was already dictated for me. I tried bucking the system. There were many ways in my teen years, in my junior high and teen years, that I tried bucking the system, because if you know anything about Enneagrams, I'm an 8, which means I'm authentic. I'm never heard. I'm bold. I'm passionate. I'm a cheerleader for people. And I just never felt heard. So I had my own ways of finding control. But then, as my path was laid out, I got married to a man, and then had a 30-year marriage, had 2 boys in that marriage. And then he developed terminal cancer in the last 10 years of our marriage. He was only supposed to live about 4 to 5 years. He had medullary thyroid cancer, and it lasted almost 10. And so went through that with him. It was extremely difficult. But I do feel like we were in a role to inspire others to go through the hard stuff. But during that time in 2019, I was getting ready to do a recording with a group that I sing with. It's how actually Amy and I met, with a Christian ministry, singing and recording albums. And so in 2019, we were doing a recording at my home church, where I live. When rehearsing and all that, it takes a lot of breath with what we do. And I was walking and I felt like I shouldn't be out of breath going up a small hill. And I get my heart checked yearly. I've done it since I was 13, because I was born with a mitral valve prolapse. I got it from my daddy. He had it. It's very much on his side of the family. A heart murmur. Some people know it as a heart murmur. And so I had that, an echo done earlier that year. They said it was mild to moderate regurgitation, no big deal. Well, I went in and I took myself in and I was like, something's going on. I don't feel right. It feels like my blood sugar's dropping, and I know that can be heart related to also. So they did an echo, came out of that and said that I actually needed a repair soon. And so I asked, Amy, you'll laugh at this because this is what singers do. Can we do it after the recording? Because I have this recording. Can we do it after? Just give me 2 more months. And he was like, yes. I mean, you can do it after the recording, but as soon as the recording's over, we need to get you in, schedule you in. I said, great, fine. Did the recording. I was scheduled for surgery on January the 7th of 2020. We know what happened in 2020. So this is right before the world lost its mind, right? And turned upside down. And I'm so thankful that I was able to go in and get it done at that time. So anyways, I go in, looking back now, because this is when I had to have open heart surgery. I was told that. It was shocking. No one wants to have that, but I do believe I was directed to the doctor that I needed to be with. Hands down, Spirit guided me there. Because I wouldn't be alive today if he had not been the surgeon operating on me. So I'm in Northwest Arkansas, Northwest corner. He is in Little Rock, Central Arkansas, actually where I was born. And so I had to travel down there to see him. So anyway, so we go in, I'm getting ready. I'm doing all the prep and everything. And at that time, I don't know if on your show, y'all talk about signs, that the Spirit gives signs.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Well, I see hearts everywhere. Like sometimes more in different seasons of my life, sometimes more than more times, like sometimes 5 a day, sometimes 1 a day, but I will see a heart at some point. At this time, in retrospect, looking back, I remember when they were doing the day before a prep on my carotid artery, just testing my carotid artery. It's all the tests you have to have before open heart. And I remember looking over at a picture. It was a picture of poppies. And I wish I could, it's probably not there anymore, but I wanted to go back and take a picture of that picture. But I remember looking and talking to the nurse. It was just her and I saw a heart in that picture. And I told her, I said, have you noticed there's a heart in that picture? And she looked over. She goes, where? And I said, right there. And she goes, oh, yeah. Oh. And I went, what? And she goes, it's a black heart. And I went, oh, it is a black heart. What does that mean? She goes, nothing. And she just, I was like, okay, well, you're not thinking anything, right? Well, in retrospect, I believe that was Spirit telling me, you're going to die, but it's going to be okay because you're in puppy land, right? It's all puppies. It's all good. And so anyways, I go into surgery. Everything's prepped. It was supposed to be a 3 to 4 hour, 5 hour surgery. When I went into my room or into the hospital, it was dark outside that time of the year, not much light. When I woke up from surgery, it was dark outside. And my immediate thought, like after I was kind of in and out when I was coming out of the vent, I was still on the vent and everything. I remember thinking, did we not do the surgery? Like, did we not do that? It's still dark outside. But anyways, I had tubes coming out of the side. I have ports, So he accessed just opening up my rib, and going through the side, and put a new door in my system. And he placed it, sewed me up, took me off bypass. He said at that point everything looked good. And from a prior surgery that he had done 10 years earlier, he always looks at the patient. Like, he waits 5 minutes after he closes them up just to make sure everything's okay. And then, so, he closes me up, he waits, and he said almost at the 5-minute marker, my heart started doing every heart arrhythmia possible. Like, I was having multiple heart attacks, and different heart arrhythmias going everywhere. He said basically your heart was screaming at me. I know from medical records from that point until the point that he opened me back up was 12 minutes. A friend of mine, my daughter-in-law's mother, was the OR prep nurse for me. She was one of his nurses, and she had gone out in the hallway because they were all freaking out because he had come out to get permission to open up my chest. Because he said, I think I know what's wrong with her, but I've got to open up the chest. And of course, my husband said, yes, go in, open up her chest. And then she goes out and she sees the anesthesiologist in the hallway on her knees praying. And so, Debbie, she says, Amanda, is everything okay? And she goes, he's got to get back in there. I've done all I can. I cannot bring her back. Like, I can't do any more. He's got to get in there. I have to get to her heart. And so anyway, so he goes back, he opens up my chest, he replaces the ring, and because the ring fell, it actually clipped a main artery, and I had to have a bypass. So I had no oxygen. So I had completely cut off oxygen. And so they had to actually do a bypass in my heart and then close me up. And I flatlined the next day. I mean, it was a hard road coming out. So during that 12 minutes is, I believe, when my near death happened, because I had no blood flow. I had died technically. My understanding prior to my open heart surgery, I did not know. I had not read much at all about near death experiences. It's not that I didn't believe, because I believe we can do far more than what we've been told we can. But it's just that it wasn't something that just completely interested me. So I didn't know a whole lot about it. But since my surgery, I've learned that a lot of them happen during open heart surgeries or when it's affected the heart in some way. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So when I woke up off the vent, I was off the vent completely. I was coming to. I remember my daughter-in-law was sitting beside my bed, and the nurse came in. And so, but as she's talking to me, I'm just looking at her like, and then I was like, leave the room. I was like mentally trying to get her to leave the room. And when she left the room, I looked at my daughter-in-law and I said, get a pencil and a piece of paper. I want you to write these things down. Don't question me. Just write them down. So I started bullet point telling her, because after my surgery, it was hard for me to make cohesive sentences, if that makes sense. I was on anesthesia. I was on bypass anesthesia for over 10 hours. So I was just like, but I could see everything in my head as clear as day. Like, I had just left there. It was very, very clear. So I was giving her things that I thought I could use, and remember.
Most of the people that I've talked to that have had near-death experiences experience it in such a way that it is extremely vivid and that it's very hard to forget even the most minute details. It's, from what I understand, like, this experience is so next level vivid and you leave feeling so entirely transformed that the memory lives with you. It's like, I can transport myself, I can see, I can feel, I can hear everything in that moment that happened. So why don't you transport yourself there And
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about what you experienced in those 12 minutes.
Okay. So, I remember what I remember is being in I didn't know so I don't remember, like, when I was there, I don't remember my life. Like, it's not like, "Oh, there they are, here I am." I was immediately in that present space, in the spirit world is what I will call it. It's the spirit world. I was completely there. I didn't see the operating room. I wish I would have. I wish I could have, like, looked back, but I wasn't in between. I was there.
They
Um,
usually call that the void. You're in the void. That
well, that's how I refer it.
yeah,
I refer to it as a void
yeah.
because once I got there, I was like, I'm trying to figure out quickly where I am. I can't Okay, and I'll say this, I didn't have words, like physical words, but everything was mentally done. Everything
Telepathic.
was mentally
Mhm.
telepathic, everything. I mean, even to the point of I could communicate with the light around me, even though it looked physical. Okay, so I was in the void, and I was trying to figure out, am I in space? Like, because I was floating, but I had purpose in my presence. I knew I had a body, but I couldn't see my body. Like, if I wanted to pick something up, I knew I could, but there was no reason to pick anything up. I could move things if I wanted to with my mind, but I was a being and I was there. I remember feeling very separate at first from, like, I was recognized. It's almost like I was put there and then look at everything, Charity. Like, feel it out, ask questions, be curious. And so I was like, what is this amazing light around me? And it was like a grayish white. But the only thing I can come very close to describing it is, have you ever seen the sunlight come through fog? Like a real heavy fog, and the fog gets very bright light, but it doesn't hurt your eyes. That was that light. Um, and then I remember looking to my left. So everything was very spatial for me. Like, things happened on my left and things happened on my right, which I'm actually, like, personally diving into that more now about the spatial reasoning of our brains in the spiritual world. Anyways, and so I turned to my left and I remember looking, and it's like I realized I could look deeper into the light. And so I kept looking and focusing and, like, can I look past that light? Is there something beyond that light? And as I looked deeper at the light, I saw, like, floating translucent glitter is the best way I can describe, like rainbows, like rainbow translucent glitter falling everywhere. I just can't even. It makes me just now when I think about it. And then I realized that there was nothing beyond the light. I couldn't. I was trying so hard. And I love that the spirit was allowing me to try and to learn about the light. And then I remember looking kind of like straight ahead and thinking about what I just experienced and how beautiful it was. And I remember kind of looking down, although I didn't see a body or anything. I just looked down. I was looking around and I was like, it's in me. Like, the light is in me, and the light is there, and I am one with the light. I get emotional when I talk about it. um,
It's all right.
but no, that was the moment that everything changed for me. I didn't know it at the time, but my life would never be the same at that moment. Um, so the light was one with me, and as soon as I, like, realized that, or I had the knowledge of that, I started moving forward. I did not choose to move forward. The light or something was just like, I'm just moving forward. Nothing's pushing me, nothing's pulling me. And as I move forward, I remember looking up and I start seeing, like, go from right to left pictures of my family, like my dad. and my mom, but it was like a broken picture, like it was going in and out, like a TV reception that's not coming through quite clear. And I was like, oh, yeah. And see, my dad had passed. And so as soon as I saw my dad, I was like, oh, thank you for my dad. And then my mom, thank you for my mom. And then my sister, like my whole family were going across. And even Sugar Bear, my dog, thank you for dog. And the more that was being shown to me, the more grateful I was becoming. And my personality is I'm very passionate and I'm all in when I'm in. And so I just became even more passionate and in my head saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then that stopped and I started moving forward again. And then I started creating. I was like, no, I'm not done thanking you. And then I was like, I thought about a grass and I thought about the water and I was like, the trees. And I was like, thank you. So I started recalling nature because I love nature. And that's where I feel closest,
Also,
That's,
I think there's an element of us that doesn't understand that we are nature. We
yes,
are nature. We are
yes,
nature. It's not separate from us, it is within us. So
right.
that makes
The
sense
whole
to me that
creation.
you are enjoying and relishing the gratitude of that aspect of
Yes.
who you are. So,
Yes, and again, I believe it's that realization
yeah.
that the transformation is happening to me at that moment, of the oneness and unity. That's very important to me, is that we're all unified and equal. And so I'm moving forward, and then um, I give up on things to thank him for. I mean, I'm just like, thank you, him or her, spirit. I was just like, thank you. And so I kind of stopped moving forward. And this is another thing. I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't even see a tunnel. Again, I am one with the light. I did never felt like I was separated. I was trying to figure out, so I stopped and I heard in the right side of my head, um, I heard because I kept thinking and kept thinking, thank you. And I heard a laugh. It was like a chuckle. And it was like, "I know, Charity, I know. Like, honey, stop. I know. You don't have to keep thanking me. I know." And I was like, "Of course you know." Like that. And as soon as that happened, I was back. Like I knew I was leaving. It was like not even a split second. And I knew I was leaving. And I said, "Okay, then your will be done." And it was over. I couldn't even get done out, the full word done out. And then it was over, and I was waking in and out of event, and reality had hit back. That's my near death. There are a little bit more details in there, like I felt there was no gravity.
Yeah.
Like even in water, you can feel even in water when you're floating that if the water was gone, you would drop. There is gravity, a gravitational force. Here, when I was floating, that was not a feeling that I had. It's like almost like that was my essence, was to just be where I was and nowhere else. That there was not a possibility to be anywhere else other than where I was. Um, I'm trying to think one other thing. After my NDE, I remember sitting on the couch. And the way the couch is, there's sunlight that comes in through one of the blinds at a certain time of year. And there was a fog outside that morning. And I remember looking out at the fog, and I always go there. I look when there's a fog, I search for the sun because it takes me back to that moment. And I remember just letting the sun hit my face through the fog, thanking him, for everything. And it's like the spirit told me because it comes from the right. That's how I know spirit's talking to me. It's always from the right side. And spirit said, "There are no shadows where I am." And I went, "There are no shadows." And I remember writing it down. There are no shadows where spirit is. And I was like, "Oh, there's no division."
Mm.
And I went, "Oh, there were no shadows." in the spiritual realm, there is no shadows, because that means there's division, because there's something blocking the light. And at that moment, I realized there was no shadows, because I could see a shadow on my nose. And I was like, there are no shadows, because there's no division in the spirit world,
So,
only unity.
let me ask you this: being from where you are, I know a lot of people that have, especially I grew up in Church of Christ too, so I don't know who your parents were or how, but like in a way I got away with not having to be, it just didn't take for me. Like I never believed in that
Mhm,
stuff like since I was a kid.
mhm,
So I escaped the programming of it all somehow. But I
mhm,
do know that kind of what you were listening to every Sunday and the threads that would run in that arena,
mhm.
and it's not open-mindedness. It's not
No.
it's not like, "Ooh,
Mhm.
come and tell me your NDE," and,
No.
it's none of that. So, let me ask you a couple of questions. Number 1, did you have any psychological repercussions from that NDE that kind of, sometimes when somebody has really deep Christian foundations that they are, very, intertwined with, when you have something like that and you start understanding, oh, when you die, it's not like hellfire, brimstone, we're going to judge you. You go back to a place of love. It's comfort. It
Mhm,
feels like home.
mhm.
How was your experience post NDE? Did you immediately start transforming your perspectives on what church, organized religion, and what life was, or how did you mentally process your
Mm-mm.
experience?
I was fine mentally processing everything. It was everyone else around me that was not ready. I remember coming out in during my healing process, because 2020, everything shut down.
Yeah,
It's
COVID.
a great time to have an open heart surgery and heal,
Yeah.
because everything shut down. But I started meditating. Like, I was drawn, like spirit was literally drawing me to a path, a totally different path. I started meditating. I joined a religious-based Zoom group on meditation, silence, prayer, all of those things, and I started practicing those things. I realized I remember telling one of the elders whenever we came back into worship, I said, "We're getting this all wrong. You know that." And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "It's all about love and light. This making sure everyone's in the seats, this going to worship at a certain time, this he does not care if we worship here or there, because our whole life is worship, because we're one
Yeah.
with God. God is in me. I am God." I mean, I was like going through the whole, so the language started coming out of me. It's not that I, like, studied a lot and then trying to figure out, I believe I've always bucked the system. I grew up hellfire and brimstone. Like, I was actually taught as a child that God had me by a string and would dip me in the fire just to keep me right, like, keep me on the right path. Right?
Yeah,
Right?
I
yeah.
didn't get that, but
That
it doesn't surprise me. It
that
doesn't
It's
surprise
really
me.
that
pretty.
that's the kind of this is what I remember hearing when I was a kid that I was like, the fuck out of here. When
Mhm.
when my preachers would be like, and we're the only ones that are going to heaven. Everybody else is
Yes.
not going to be with us. And our hearts can go out to them, poor souls, but we will be rejoicing with God and everybody else will be languishing in hell. And I was like, I'm like young. I'm like, that is bullshit.
Mm,
That is not the way
right.
life is. It can't be.
Mm-mm.
Nothing in that feels accurate, right, or correct. Nothing. And
Well, and we were told, narrow is the gate.
yeah,
Few
exactly.
will go in. We're the few that are go in.
Yes.
How egotistical
Yes.
is that?
Yes.
Hubris,
Oh,
yeah.
we were so even as a child, I bucked
Yes.
those things that were being told. I believed them to a point, because it was fear-based.
Dear.
Um, I was very controlled by my mother.
Yeah.
So much more now I realize than I'm realizing now, very controlled by my mother. I did not have another option, like, to even leave. I was forced to go to a Church of Christ private school. I went to Church of Christ college. I went to church. I mean, everything, my whole world revolved, it was centered. I was in the center of the Church of Christ world.
Wow.
Amy and I've talked about this, and I will say it. And what's interesting, no one ever tells me not to say this except for my Church of Christ, the people that I knew in the Church of Christ. But Church of Christ is a cult.
Oh,
I
yeah.
completely believe it's a cult. I can say that now. But I always say, once you're outside the walls of Jerusalem, you look back into it and you're like, oh my goodness, they can't, some of them will never get out. They just do not have the courage or the strength to get out. And so, oh my gosh, it's like, just the control that I had. So when I left, when I made the choice, going back to your question, when I made the choice, it was like only a couple of years. And I started even questioning more. Not just, I always question things about what we were taught about Christ, because I was like, that doesn't make sense. You're saying he didn't want to go to the cross. That doesn't even make sense. And so I would question leadership and they would avoid me at all costs. But I would question them. I'd question scripture. I was like, it's contradicting itself. Something's not right here. So I remember sitting down. So when we came back out of COVID, I was asked to help bring in a worship team, praise team, and all of that. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it for a year. I'll do it. And I was in the meeting with men. These are deacons and elders. And I was psychologically and emotionally abused in that time. I was demeaned. I was put in a position of, yeah, you make the decision. And then after the decision was made and it was done, whatever, bringing in tables for communion instead of having the trays or whatever, a change, then I was gaslit and said, why did you do that? And I went, well, you told me I could do that. So it was a constant like that, narcissistic type behavior. They needed my help, but yet they were not going to give me any kind of credit. I was told I was brash and harsh. That in the secular world, that would be called something else. I had an elder walk into the room because I had invited another woman to the table. Had an elder walk into the room and he said, there sure is a lot of estrogen in this room. So it was, they would never get away with that. And these were corporate men. So
not around me.
No. I was questioned about some of my teachings. I mean, so it was a constant. So I was done. And I remember telling my husband at the time, I came in from a meeting bawling because I had to call him on the table to some stuff. And I told him, I said, I am leaving the Church of Christ. I will wait a year after you have passed. And he goes, no, we can go now. I said, I'm not doing that. He was literally dying. I said, I'm not doing that to you, but I will be gone out of the Church of Christ. It will take me a year to leave because of my position, because I'm not leaving people empty-handed. I mean, I could have just walked away. I'm not going to be mean. That's not love and unity. That's just not love. And I said, but I'm leaving. So sure enough, he died in November. I was gone by October of the next year. There's another reason why I left so early. I wanted to leave in December, but I had to leave in October, which was fine. I had everything set up and ready to go. It is to date, the best decision I have ever made.
Oh, yes.
In my life.
Oh, yeah.
The freedom and the peace that I have is without a doubt, I could never go back. I mean, and not because I want to or I don't want to. I was leaving. A lot of them don't believe that. They do not believe that I was leaving. The ones that I told, I said, don't you remember me saying I'm out of here in a year? And they were like, yeah, well, we didn't think you were serious. No one's ever serious when they say they're leaving. And I'm like, yeah, I was making my plan to leave. So,
well, I mean, not everyone is meant to awaken in this lifetime.
right.
You can only give information to people. You can tell them your story. You can do all the things. Yep. But at the end of the day, I have found in my little experience, nobody could have switched me from atheism but me. But
right.
me, nobody. that's how us humans are, man. We can tell our stories and have
Right.
maybe a little bit of effect, but unless you go through something on your own, like it's very hard to change, especially like you were so into the Church of Christ with going to
Oh,
the schools and all of that. My,
I was,
I
I
commend
told,
you for
I
getting
think,
into that, man. Like you
I
were,
will tell you, and when I got out of it, I was teaching a ladies' Bible class every
oh,
Tuesday. I was I was like worship coordinator over two praise teams, deacons. I led logistic meetings. I mean, I was in it,
ugh.
like in it.
Commend you,
Um,
commend you
yeah.
for experiencing a new experiencing and making different choices. Not everybody would have done the same thing, you know? There are some people that would have stuffed our own grandmother. Amy, let's get you into this. Our own
Yeah.
grandmother, my grandma Gentry, she had a near death experience. She told my mom about it. She never left the church. She never even thought much past it. She didn't give it a second thought other than tell her story and move on. Didn't change her religious beliefs. Didn't give her an understanding of what her life was. And that nothing. But she, she
I
was very hellfire brimstone and very dedicated to the church till the day she passed. And she had a near death experience.
she did. And pretty young. Like she was
And
younger with Janet, but she didn't tell very many people.
that's
Like
true.
she didn't tell our mother until much later in her life. And I think that was fear. You know,
Mhm.
right now we know a lot more about NDEs than
Yeah.
we did, 70 years ago, maybe
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And so, and she also was like
Oh,
in it,
in it,
Mhm.
deep.
and it was her whole life. And so I think it scared her because
Mhm.
it contrasted. There's this cognitive dissonance, right?
Mhm.
There's this, I've always been told this, I've always been told this, I've always been told this. And now all of a sudden you are literally physically faced with an alternate reality.
Mhm.
And she's like,
Well,
And
she's like,
it's
nope.
your paradigm. It doesn't fit the
Yeah,
paradigm.
no,
She did not understand because it was not fitting that paradigm.
right.
And
And
that's
so
a
she
scary point.
just
Yeah.
kept it to
she's
herself.
also from a different era. Like,
She is.
Yes.
as much as the Church of Christ is so misogynistic that I would punch that dude in the face if he ever. I would have come out and have been full Busby on him if he would have treated me like that. And I deal with men
Yeah.
every day on movie sets, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
They
But
have a way. They have a way, right? Just
oh, not with me, they don't.
yeah.
But I will say that she came from an era where she was even more stuffed down than maybe you were by men
Yeah.
around her, feeling
Mhm.
that she was powerless and had no control over her life. And I think that was part of it too. It's like she had no inner strength to come out and tell her story because I think she would have been
She had
very
no support.
yes.
She wouldn't get support with it. I at least had my family who listened, my sister who supported me, friends who supported me. I mean, I had that. I had people who listened, and are listening, you know.
That's huge.
It's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, yeah. And I think too, prior to my near death, I was already receiving information from spirit. Like I knew, like I remember meditating and praying, which I know is meditation now. That's all that is. I was praying and I remember spirit said something big is going to happen in 2018 and someone is going to die. Like it's going to be a shock. It's going to be a shock. Something's going to happen. There will be a death. Well, I told 3 people. That's my rule. When I get messages like that, I tell 3 people because I'm probably going to forget if I don't write it down or something. And I had told 3 people and they all thought it was going to be Seth, because he was dying. I mean, he had cancer. I was like, no, it's not Seth. Like, I don't feel that. And so then come to find out it was my dad. He had died 2018 of a sudden heart attack, of a widowmaker heart attack. And it was a shock. So I had gotten that message. So I was already open to receiving messages. My mother-in-law had died and
So
I felt her kiss me, so
So do you feel like you have a little bit of spidey senses? You have a little
yes,
ability to you're an empath, you have some sort of
yes.
clairvoyant, clair
Mhm.
knowledge, whatever.
Yes.
Before your NDE, did you feel did that align with because that doesn't really align with the church, like talking to
No,
spirit, like that's not gonna be
it's
acceptable.
kind of like, no, but again, my personality bucks. Even though I was in that world, I challenged that world. Like I was going to bring women to the forefront in the Church of Christ. I thought I could do that. Like I literally thought I could do that. Bring them to the stage, give them more jobs than just teaching them holding babies, and making a casserole. Like they can do so much and more, And so I thought I was going to make a difference there. Um, and I mean, so I was constantly
Yeah.
challenging in a peaceful way. I was not mean or anything like that, but forceful. I realized that's not going to happen. And so I would talk about, Spirit told me. I was very much the hand raiser in worship. I was the only one. I'm the first one to start clapping. And I was like, and they were like, what if people say something? You're disrupting their worship. I said, I challenge them to come say something to me because I will look at them and say, why do you want to quench the spirit? Because this is from a place of a spirit, not because I'm wanting attention. So they knew not to come challenge me. So that was my personality. I just realized I felt like I was not in the right place. Like, I believe now that we are here. I believe in reincarnation.
Yes.
I believe a
Yes.
totally different from what, I was raised. But I believe that in my life right now, this life that I've chosen to come live, that this was the lesson that I needed to learn to get out from control and to really experience what freedom is in love. Because what I was under was not love. And I had to experience that to know this is love. I had to have the contrast. And so there's no way I can go back because that's not love. That's conditional. It's not a godly love. What I'm in now in spirituality is the godly love. We love all people. Everyone is love.
Do you go
And
to church now? What is your do you still go to church? Or
so I took a little break. My partner, who I am with now, really needed to go to a place of worship. And so we sought out a place. And so we found a First Christian church. And they are amazing. In fact, it's very interesting. So affirming LGBTQ, affirming community is very important to me, extremely important to me. And so they are affirming. And what's interesting about Disciples of Christ and Church of Christ is they used to be one
oh,
Correct.
interesting.
and they split but over music
Yes.
and some other things and women's roles.
Yeah.
And so there's some similarities that I like, communion. But if I was solo and by myself, I would not blink an eye in never stepping foot into a building again.
There's
It would
there's really
it's
no
I don't
need.
need it. I don't need it to worship my creator. What I do get from it is community because the people, and they are so loving and they love all the individuals and what they bring to the table. They want that. They want you to be different. They want you to bring your gifts and what the Spirit is giving you. So, and I have found some amazing, very true, unconditional friends there where my world was very conditional.
Have
Two things. Yeah, go
have you
ahead.
been able to maintain any relationships from your church of all of them gone?
Oh, really?
So when I left
Wow.
the Church of Christ, there were two reasons. I'll share one reason today because I needed to leave. I was no longer a fit. It was actually slowly killing me. My peace was gone. This love and light, this what I had completely transformed into, was being seared all the time, and I was like, I'm done. I've got to move on. So when I left, I lost 90% of my world. 90%. I had a friend, so 2 of my friends, one I'll talk about one. So she literally did not know what to do with me. She still doesn't. She said that, um, if Jesus comes back, she said, "Because you're not in the faith," and the other one said, "I was walking in darkness because 'cause I'm no longer in the faith," that, they didn't know if they would be saved.
Oh, even
And
talking to you, they don't feel comfortable because they
yeah,
don't.
they can't associate with me.
Oh,
No,
wow.
because I'm not in the church. I'm not in agreement with them on other things. And so and my response was, and I'm usually not this witty right off the cuff. And I thought, thank you, Spirit. Thank you for giving me that. I thought, I don't have that much control over your salvation. That's up to you and Jesus. That's
Yeah.
up to you and Spirit. I don't have that control. That is sad. Then you better just live in a hermit in your house because I don't know. You're around so many people, in the world. You better check their credentials before you stand in line with them because he may just pass by Target. I mean, I don't know. You know, and so I knew right then and there, those were kind of the last 2 that anything that disrupts my peace has to go. If it's toxic, they have to go. And so for me in my life right now, that is toxicity, and I graciously let them go. One of the friends keeps trying to call me, and I will not
Interesting.
answer her phone call. She told me I was going to hell.
Oh.
So we're done. In a loving way, she said, I love you, but you're walking in darkness and you're going to hell. And I was like, okay, well, we're done.
There's no such thing as hell. There's just not.
I
There's no such thing
Amen.
as hell.
There is not. And
There
that's another thing
we
this
do
year.
not die and go get punished for
No,
our sins. We do not.
no,
We
'cause
might
it's
have
been
to come back and relearn a few lessons,
right.
but
Right.
we're not going to burn in eternal hell for making bad choices or
No.
mistakes or even being
This is
evil.
our classroom. It's a classroom to
is
learn
a
about love.
Yes.
It
That's
is.
all it
It is
is.
a
And
school
so
of
we're all doing our
expansion.
best.
Yes.
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 So are you and Amy forming a Church of Christ anonymous how to leave the church and survive,
Well,
Are
we
you
need
guys
to. We
Really
ought
should do.
to.
forming a
Mormons
foundation?
have it. I think Mormons have it, don't they?
They
I
might
Yeah, they
actually.
do.
Yeah.
They do. They do.
Well,
So
there are a lot of people, whether they came out of Church of Christ, Mormon,
yeah,
like that have suffered religious trauma. Like when you're um, when you live in such fear of making the wrong decision and being excluded and suppressing who you are. And I mean, I still get very, very triggered by things people say. And I just,
yeah.
so yeah, there's a new church community called Post Evangelical Collectives, and they have churches all over the United States. And I've been to one of their meetings. Great people, but they are all people who have come out of these ultra conservative um, communities and upbringings. Many times, that's the way they were brought up, and they, you know, things have just gotten as bad as they were for us when we were growing up. They've
Yeah.
gotten worse. They've gotten crazier. They've gotten farther right. They've gotten like Christian
Well, they're
nationalism.
losing control.
Exactly.
There's an awakening happening, and that's what they don't understand. There is I call it a love awakening happening. People's minds are being opened. Thank you, internet. Thank you, social media. Thank you.
Right.
And so they are losing control because their numbers are going away.
Yeah.
And that freaks leadership out.
Yeah.
And so because how are they going to pay their preachers and their ministers and
Right.
open that building? And so they don't know what to do beyond their structure that they're very comfortable with. And so I believe that's why they're just grasping for
I mean, that's why
anything.
they pump you full of
Full of
fear.
fear.
That's
100%.
why, a fear of going to hell, fear of losing your tribe, fear of not being welcomed,
Right.
fear.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such
Well, we're pack animals.
yes.
You know,
Yes.
Yes.
150 years ago, if you didn't have a group, you could not exist out on your own, right?
Sure.
You needed that. We take care of each other. Different people brought different things to the table. We shared everything. And so we're pack animals. And honestly, and I know I've talked about this with both of you, we need connection. Social connection is one of the predictors of longevity. And so there are so many things that are tied to remaining in those communities because the fear of losing that belonging and,
Yeah.
And the fear of being alone.
Yes.
100%.
That is a real
Totally.
fear. I remember feeling that when I left until I found community.
Yep.
That loneliness, you can be lonely in a room of 300 people,
Sure can.
but to feel alone and to feel we're not meant to be that way. We're pack animals. And so I believe is people's number one fear is that they're going to be left alone to fend for themselves
Yes.
out in the wild, right? Like a leper, right? That they're
And
going to have.
I'll be honest, my conditioning is so deep. There are times, there are moments, even though I know that that is all crazy, that I'll be like,
Yeah.
but what if they were right? What if I,
Yep.
what if? And I have to be like,
Amy, I do that too. Like every once in a while it will click like something I was told and I'm like, no, 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 no. No, that's fear based. It is that trauma. It's what the
Yes.
brainwashing.
Yes.
And I have to like recenter, tell myself truth, and then move on. Like, what is true love? What is that? So,
Yeah.
Christy, you were asking me another thing that I experienced that has come out. So I had this ability. I learned I can channel.
Oh, I love talk about channeling. Channeling is something that
Yes.
more and more people are coming out and talking about,
Yes.
along with the
Yes.
spiritual awakening, this channeling.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that really opened me up to spirituality was listening to channelers and understanding
Mm-hmm.
how we truly are interdimensional beings, and
Mm-hmm.
that it's fascinating. But tell me all about your
Yeah.
channeling.
Yeah, just a little bit. I'm in a class right now because I'm trying to take courses to learn more about it, to get broader with my mediumship and everything. But one day, I've always felt like I could feel my grandmother around me, the presence of my grandmother. And so I thought, I'm just going to see and talk, and see if I can hear something from my right side of my head or something like that. So in my meditation, I just one day just happened on it and I was like, if you're here, let me know. And my eyes, this is weird. To me, it's strange. It may not be strange, but my eyes were closed and my eyes started going up and down, like rapidly up and down. And I wasn't making it happen. And I was like, does that mean yes? Because I know like they'll communicate through yes or no from the channelers that I'd seen. And I was like, and my eyes started doing yes, like up and down. And then I said, okay, so no will go, sideways. And so I started asking her questions and my eyes would go up and down or sideways. And I was not making it happen.
I had a woman on the show. Her name's Kimberly Meredith. Shout out to Kimberly Meredith. She is a hands-on healer, and how the spirits, and she actually, I don't even think I told you this, Amy. I saw her last month in October, I think I saw her. And I had a leaky gut. She touched me. She did a session on me, and I ended up having to put ice on my stomach for a few days.
Mhm.
My digestive system is completely different. This
Wow.
woman has the power to heal you.
Yeah.
And I've
They
watched
hang.
her do it,
Right.
but I didn't experience it. And like, still, this is going to be TMI. Still, when I'm having my morning session, I'm like, Kimberly Meredith, man, you fixed my gut. Is amazing. But anyways,
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
does blinking of the eyes
Yes.
is
Okay, that's a
is
thing.
what she has. She has a blinking of the eyes is how
I didn't know that was a thing. I can still do that.
Yeah.
But I decided to get dowsing rods.
Oh, okay,
I
yeah.
told Amy about this. And so I use dowsing rods now. And that is even more clearer
Mm-hmm.
because for my yes, it's out and no is cross. And then neutral is no answer. I could call up my dad right now. And my dad's signal is I'll say, and I always invite good
Yeah.
spirits into my space. And I always ask the spirit to point what direction. So if they are a spirit, point of human spirit or animal, I have actually channeled an animal before, didn't know I could do that. But left is a human spirit animal, earthly spirit. Right is a spiritual being, like my guardian angel. I've actually talked to Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel.
Yeah.
And so my dad always, and now I'll say, is there any good spirit, that would like to communicate today? And the rods go out, hit my shoulders like I'm getting a hug. And that is my dad, because that's how we would sign off. So my dad is always with me,
Yeah.
always.
Yep.
He used to be with my mom. I found that out. And now I said, are you with me now because mom doesn't need you? And he was like, yes. And I said, do I need you more right now? And he goes, yes, like a big yes. I was like, okay. So yeah, so I know I can do that. So I'm just I would love to be more visual with it and see the things and tell people or hold an object. So I'm practicing that.
I mean,
I've been told I can do that.
well, that's what I was just
eventually.
going to say is like, I talk to so many, I've learned so much on this podcast, and I read so many books because I host a lot of authors. So I am just
Mhm.
like, you know, completely ingesting new information all the time. It's been
Mhm.
amazing. But I will say I do talk to a lot of psychics, mediums. I always ask them how they came to know that they had gifts and the origins and all of that. And many realized that they had some sort of extra sensory
Mhm.
something, and they either
Mhm.
came upon somebody that said, "Oh yes, you are gifted. You need to go see this
Mhm.
person," or they just got pulled in a direction that
Mhm.
either going to a school or somebody else who had gifts mentored them. So it's
Mhm.
very normal for somebody to go and start honing their own skills if they just
Mhm.
need to learn how to focus their energy, their intentions,
Right,
and start really
right,
becoming a more of an open channel, like getting
and
more into those
aware
gifts. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
their ability.
Yeah.
I truly believe truly believe every human being is a psychic.
Yes.
They just have the physical world, the physical lens is too strong, and just things that can break that lens, like, I've never felt like I fit in. My whole life, I felt very different, and I've been always attracted to the odd man out. That's just my personality, and so that's just who I am, and so now I know why I've never really fit in. So then I have the NDE. I believe that was purposeful because spirit was saying, "Okay, now's your time. You're gonna get to live a second part of your life,
Yeah.
and it's gonna look very different." So real quick, one thing that, my husband told me, within the last couple months of his life, I was passing him one day and he said, "Come here." And so I went there and I stood in front of him and he said, "You're gonna live a second part of your life and it's gonna look completely different than the first half of your life." And I went, "How? Like, what does that look like?" He said, "It's gonna look completely different." And then it's like he zoned out. So it's like that was prophetic message, and I just held it, and boy, my life is so different, and in a lovely way. It's like I had to go through the darkness, and I'm not saying that all my life was dark. I mean, I have 2 amazing kids. They're great, but there's the darkness, and then it's like I've come to the light, and I can truly be who I was meant to be, on this earth, and it's a beautiful thing.
Exactly. And that is a beautiful thing. To be your most authentic self is who
Mhm.
we are all supposed to
Absolutely.
be here. And through our own programming, through our own belief system, whether we feel like we're not worthy or we're not good enough or we're not strong enough
Mhm,
to be who we are meant to be. There's many
mhm,
reasons and traumas that we experience and all that, but I truly believe one of the things that we're supposed to be doing here is everybody has a soul purpose. We should all be trying to figure out what that is. I'm in the
mhm,
process of trying to figure it out myself, and I think we all want to be our most true, most authentic
mhm.
selves. And I do think religion does prevent us
Yes.
from doing that. Not only but fear, but you are supposed to act, behave, think, say, repeat certain things. You are not allowed to go off and, go off the grid or go off the chart or,
Or question
question
anything.
anything.
Question anything,
And,
right.
I know Amy and I, we spent many years, not probably as close as we should have been as sisters, because I was very much an atheist and she was very much into Church Christ.
Right?
And
Mhm.
we did not see eye to eye on anything. And because back then Amy was, the church makes you judgmental of others. It's like
Yes.
it does. It makes
Yes.
you
That's where the
judge.
lines are, though.
I
That's
mean,
how you know. That's how
Yeah.
you know who's in and who's out.
Yes.
I'm writing a book, and I was talking with my editor about something I'd written, and it was about how when I went to my first stress management conference, walked into the room, Brian Luke Seward had books all around the room, a whole bunch of them, and he said to us, pick up a book, look at it. You can take it back to your room, bring it back. He's like, take what resonates with you and leave the rest. And that was life changing for me. Because I was used to being told that you must read things that are only in this box.
Right.
You can't have anything. And the freedom in that. So that judgment comes from, that's how you know if you're in or out.
Right.
Everything is related to whether you are in or out.
Mhm.
I was definitely
so-
out. I was definitely out of Amy's
You
realm.
were out. Yeah, you were right. You were right. You were right.
What's interesting about all the books is I immediately, like this past year, I have bought Jesus in India. I bought Buddhism Made Simple. I am learning. It's almost like a frenzy of knowledge.
Yeah.
I just want whether I take it and keep it or put it back.
That's
You
right.
know, learning.
Yeah.
I have the ability to learn. And so the
And
freedom
discern. You have the ability to discern
Right.
for yourself.
myself
That,
for my own soul
yes.
and
Yeah.
no one else.
Yeah.
And the other thing is this past year, what I do not, this is one of the pivotal things I've learned this year. I am not here to please anyone.
No.
I'm not even here to please my creator. I'm not here to please myself. I am just here to learn and live and be graceful with myself and give myself grace. And, there's no good or bad. That's another thing, and that kind of, I'll talk to some of my friends. There's no good or bad. I mean, we're all good. We just may not make a good decision. So we have to learn from that and shift.
right.
So this way, there is no, I don't believe there's evil. I don't,
I
So-
mean, I think that human beings like to simplify things down to
Yes.
good and evil instead of having to use their brains to actually logically think through things from a perspective that maybe they don't hold on their own. I mean, we've just become so lazy with clickbait and social media and things where
Right.
the art of your own mind to formulate thoughts that did not come from a television or a
Right.
influencer is like non-existent. It's like
Right.
we just are regurgitating shit that we hear that
That
we
we were
already
told.
agree with, and if
Right.
it doesn't align with us, it's not like we give it much thought. That's how I was an atheist. There
Right.
is no way out there in hell you could have told me that when I died, I did anything other than go to dust. I was like,
Right.
full on scientism, full on, there is nothing beyond our materialistic bodies, and nobody could have told me otherwise.
Mhm.
And we tried.
It's not like I'm some open-minded person. Like, I literally had to go through my own transformation, just like
Right.
everybody else does. You're a unicorn if you can change your gut core beliefs just from somebody
Mhm.
else telling you to do so. And I say a lot this on the show, people need to be shaken to awaken. They need to be rocked
Yes.
at their core in order
Yes.
to snap out of the bubble of information that they've been living in that just feeds their own narrative and makes them feel good and safe and warm inside. And a lot of
Mhm.
that is swimming in the church organized religion thing. It makes you feel good. You already believe it. You feel comfortable. All
You feel
your
safe,
all your
all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Mhm.
everybody
Mhm.
around you feels the same way you do. There's comfort
Mhm.
in that. But I do think that there is a great awakening happening out there.
Yeah.
And, I never would have thought that Amy and I would have aligned on much in life. We tried. We had a few things that overlapped, but for the vast majority of our lives, we have not been in alignment on much. And it's only been in the last like 4 years, 3 years where we've started to really
Mhm.
I've changed a lot. I've become nicer. I'm less harsh. Like I'm pretty tough I can be hard. I can be a little
Mhm.
difficult. And I'm much softer now. I'm much more, you know,
Yeah.
I'm much softer
You
What?
have
now,
peace. You have more peace. Yeah.
I'm in a weird way happier, in a weird,
Yeah.
strange way. And
Mhm.
I have much less fear in my life.
Mhm.
And I have never been one to really care about what other people thought. Like,
Mhm.
you know, I would get kicked out of most every place that I went, a lot of the times
Mhm.
I told her about that earlier
I
today
did.
or yesterday.
I get kicked out everywhere I go because I'm just living my
Mhm.
own life. I'm in my own little bubble and I don't care about what's going on around me. So I disrupt everybody. Um, but I will say I'm much more cognizant and empathetic and
Right.
compassionate
Right.
towards people. And I
Right.
am, I'm much more able to listen to other people's and their opinions. And I I am accepting more, which is ironic, but if Amy was still the same Church of Christ go-getter that she always was, if she was still in that world, I think I would be much more willing to accept her for who she is because I now feel like everybody has their own
No.
journey, man.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
is Amy's
100%.
journey. And Amy's journey doesn't have anything to do with my journey. That's her journey. And
Mhm.
I think even now, I would probably be closer to you because I'd be more willing to accept the cray cray that you exerted to me.
Get that little dig in there.
And, I think what the beautiful thing is here, y'all were on 2 very different spectrums.
Oh, yeah.
However, on the same spectrum, it was not love. Both sides were not love, and you are now coming to the middle because empathy is love.
Yeah.
Unity is love. So you're now coming, and what the commonality is just simply love.
Yeah.
Right.
You're allowing, you be you, I'll be me, and we're going to meet
Yeah.
here in the middle, and we're just going to love each other
Yeah.
and look for those interesting, amazing, quirky things that each of us have. I love that you're loud.
Oh, yeah.
Christy, I
I'm
told
like,
him, I'm an Enneagram 8.
I,
I mean, I can get it. I get that. I love loud people. I'm like, you're my people. I'll be right behind you and we'll just be like, going through. But then I love quieter people. I wish I was more quiet. And I strive to find that balance, right? Because that's the place of love.
think
So
I'm in a good balance now. I don't think I'm as loud as I used to be. I don't think I am. Uh, but
I
you
haven't been
know,
out with you at the bar in a long
I
time.
mean, I
I
was
don't
just
know.
reflecting back to October. I'm like, was I out at the bar in October? I'm sure I
Right, you
was,
probably were.
but
You probably were.
I'm more caring about it now. I'm not going to
right.
be. I'm just softer. I'm softer.
Yes, you are softer.
And I am less arrogant. And
There you
I've done
go.
doing a lot of shadow work. Like everybody's spiritual awakening is different. Like mine in particular, especially this year, has been hard. I've had a hard year again for me. And I have been doing a lot of confronting my shadow and understanding maybe I was a little too arrogant, I was a little too harsh, I was a little too I have a very powerful personality and I can smell weakness. And sometimes,
Mhm.
sometimes I might chew you up and
Yeah.
spit you out. You know what I'm saying? I don't like I don't want to be that.
You
That's
don't
not
want to be
I
that
don't want to
anymore.
be that. I want to be softer. I want to be more, you know, even though I'm very much a protector. Like when I was young, if I saw anybody getting um picked on or anything,
Castle,
like I would
You're a
whoop
defender, right?
somebody's ass.
Look.
I would step,
Mhm.
at the same
Mhm.
time, because I have this abundance of confidence, I guess. I,
Mhm.
I, 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 I did not suffer fools very well. Let's just say that, and I don't want to be like that anymore. And now I'm like, be
Right.
stupid. I love you anyways. I don't care. It's not my journey,
Right.
man. It's your journey. Live your life. Live your best
Yes.
life. That's
Just
all.
thrive.
Yeah.
Just thrive
You
in
know,
whatever that is. Thrive. We
whatever it
want
looks
everyone
like.
to thrive.
and I know, I'm sure, Charity, you have lost a bunch through your church, and Amy, I'm sure you have dropped
Mhm.
friends after leaving Church of Christ. I think the best advice you can give people who are in a similar situation where they're trying to have an awakening, or they have a self-realization, or a trauma puts them on to their spiritual path, there is life after the church. There's people after the church. You're
Yeah.
going to find
Oh,
people that
yeah.
align with you,
Yes.
and there's nothing to fear. I don't have a lot of fear in my life anymore. I don't fear death. I no longer fear death. And I
Mm-mm.
used to fear death.
Oh, I long
I have,
for it.
I,
Their time.
I feel
Yeah.
like death is something we should talk about more. People think death is morbid. People think death is sad. People think death is, something to run away from. I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like I've been alive many times. I'm probably going to be
Mhm.
alive many more times. I'm sure there's tons of lessons I still need to learn out there. Death
Mhm.
is a transition.
Right.
Right.
You go back to where we all come from, which is the same place.
Right.
You
Yes.
get
Right.
your battle gear back on, and they say, "Okay, kiddo, you're going to get back out there and learn about, despair or
Mhm.
arrogance or whatever you're supposed to learn in
Mhm.
this lifetime that's making your consciousness grow, expand, and learn how to be more divine, more godlike, more loving." It
Yeah.
is,
And
it all comes back to love, man.
yeah, that's what I wanted to tell the listeners, that if you feel like you're in a place, in a religion that you feel trapped in, whether that's because all your family goes there, all my family, went there, that you will be okay and even better when you take that first it's kind of like an addiction. First become aware that you're in a cult and that you're being brainwashed and controlled, and usually that will come pretty quickly. And then just talk to someone that you trust, that's a safe place, and then take that step to gradually just let your wishes be known. Be aware that it's going to come with resistance, and they will try to convince you otherwise.
Oh yeah.
But just know you're doing it for the other side.
Right.
And the other side is freedom to love and worship the creator the way you want to do that. And he is open to that. She is open to that. I believe spirit is female. So that's a whole nother, you can do a whole podcast on that. The
Yeah.
she is there.
I feel
Um,
like we're dual. I feel like we all
yeah,
have
yes,
masculine and
yes,
feminine
100%.
within, and I think it's a
Yin and
dual.
yang.
Yeah,
yin and yang.
Yeah.
And
it's
it
dual.
represents God, the
Yeah.
spirit,
You know,
creator.
And
Um, and so I just encourage anyone that is at that point, just things are going to change, but I do promise it will be rough, but it will be worth it
Yeah.
if you just hold to it and stick to it. Because here's the thing, if they were my friends, and I had some of these friends for 25 years, okay, they would still be in my life,
right.
whether I went there or not. And
Well,
so it's almost like hearts were revealed to me. Their true heart was revealed to me, and what is most important to them. To me, Jesus is not what's most important to them. Their idol of the church, even held higher than the Bible, is most important to them.
right.
And so that we're not on the same playing field there. And so
also
for
it's
that,
you're vibrating at a different level now.
yes,
And
frequency is
you're
very different. Yeah.
you're no longer
Fear
vibrating.
down here.
You can't align
Down here.
anymore because
Yeah.
it's like the people that you have in your life are the people that you're attracted to, because you will have that energetic pull with one another. And when
Yeah.
you no longer have that, it naturally falls away at some point, you know? But
And Christy, you hit something. The frequency is no longer so when your frequency rises and it gets a higher frequency from that lower vibration of fear, you will have no choice
Yeah.
but to leave.
yeah, exactly.
We'll get to a point. We can call it deconstruction. We can call it whatever we want to call it, but you will have no choice but to leave. And either you will subconsciously sabotage
Yeah.
the relationship, or you will consciously,
I mean, it's
at
one of
the
the
at the role.
basic,
It can't
yeah,
exist in this.
it is one
So,
of the basic universal laws, the universal law of attraction. Like
Yes.
attracts like. That is one of the principles in which the entire universe, Earth, and all
right,
the other species, interdimensional beings in it, all play under,
right,
is this
right,
law of, like attracts like. And,
right.
it's interesting. I know we're all former Church of Christers, but I'm wondering, and I'm hesitant to bring up politics on this show because I feel like it's such a, and we're like an hour and
You
20
can.
minutes in, we're a little over our hour, so hopefully you guys don't have anything on your plates today. But
That's good.
but there does seem to be this rise of extreme religion in the
Mm,
world, and I don't think organized religion personally has ever really been here to bring us all together or to bring peace in general. It's been here for another divider, to keep us separated, to keep us from,
silos.
yeah, from,
Put us in little
yeah,
silos.
from,
Yeah.
it
Like,
keeps
well,
us from like really seeing each other for who we are and all of it. But being Amy, you're from Ohio and you're in Arkansas. I mean,
yeah,
Arkansas is pretty religious.
It
Maybe
was
yes.
not church,
Ohio.
But,
and I'm lucky, I guess. California is much more, it's not very religious. It's kind of
mm-hmm,
spiritual. It's like all the
mm-hmm,
weirdos are out here. So I don't
yep.
really have the restrictions here. Like
Mm-hmm.
like when I came out to start talking on this podcast, I had a few of my friends say, "Aren't you worried what people will think?" I'll be like, "I live in Los Angeles. Nobody cares." Like
Right.
nobody cares. I'm not going to get judged for my beliefs out here. Everybody like understands that, like,
People
everybody
have
believes.
different beliefs.
Yeah, they don't care. Like nobody cares.
So I also wonder, I totally agree with you on that. I also wonder if LA is huge.
Yes.
We are more of a small town. Everyone knows I can go to the Mexican restaurant last night and see someone I went to church with. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a small town thing, so everyone knows your business whether they want to or not, type thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder if that has something to do with it, but
It very may very well, but I I'm wondering what the future of organized religion is. I know that
oh,
there is this. I think there's a great grand awakening happening in the world. I think a lot of people are understanding that we are more powerful than we think we are, that the
right.
church maybe doesn't have ever all the answers, that maybe we're
Mhm.
not told all our real history of how we came to be.
Right.
Think there's
Right.
a lot of holes out there that are still need to be fed. And with COVID, that kind of launched the already
Yes.
shaky
Mhm.
feelings people had about institutions, whether they be health,
Right.
government, or
Mhm.
otherwise political.
Mhm.
Like everything seems to be kind of breaking, fracturing, and a new
Right.
paradigm is going to rise out of this. Now, I
Yes.
think that paradigm rise is going to be a little painful for a lot of people,
Clearly.
I
Yeah.
think it
Yeah.
is.
Well, yes.
But I am hoping on the other side of this, we lose this grip of fear, hellfire, brimstone, and cult like ways towards religion. That's what do you guys think the future of organized religion is? Do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better? Do you think that, I mean, people seem to be so, and just like holding on to their religion like for dear life. They feel persecuted. They feel like people are trying to rip their religion away from them. And I think most spiritual and or maybe even non-religious people they just don't want, they want them to go and do their religion if that makes them comfortable. But like, stop judging me for not doing it
Right.
and stop trying to save me. I don't need to be
Right.
saved.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with
Right.
when in the 80s, there's a lot of books on this. When the 80s, Republicans decided that if they could latch on to um, societal social issues that they could use to kind of like whoop up the religious right, that's how they kind of they needed that to feed their party, to like they needed something that would bring people together. So they started going after LGBTQ. They started going after the abortion. They started, all of these different issues that they used to like kind of whoop people up.
Yeah.
And it's never a good idea, like the ironic thing is the Bible talks against that, give us
Right.
render under Caesar what's Caesar's and, keep, what's God's is God's. So I'm in a group on Facebook that is people who are against Christian nationalism. And I find that there are a lot of people that are leaving that. Like it's getting
Mhm.
so far to the right. And now we're seeing things that people are just like they can't abide by it. They can't like there's like lines that are being crossed and people are moving away from that. But there's also experiencing this mourning, this mourning period, right? Because you've got sometimes every single aspect of religion is not negative. Like there
Right.
is a, that Tim and I have moved many times. Well, the first thing we would do is find a church, a community that we could plug into that would welcome us. So not everything is negative. So there's, I believe, this mourning of people that are like saying, my religion of my youth is it's not what it used to be. And they're mourning the closeness and the community, but they're having to put their foot down and say, look, I just can't be on board with the direction that it's going in. So I think that organized religion is really coming into a um, time of reckoning.
Yeah.
There are people that are just getting louder and fighting harder, kind of what we've been saying because things are falling apart. But there are more people that are saying this is not acceptable. This is not
Right.
okay. And there are other options, ultra conservative right is not the only way people can worship their creator or worship spirit or whatever it is to them. The young people that are coming up are much more, they want reproductive health. They're more comfortable with equality for women. They have a different mindset. But the far right, they've got these podcasts with these,
I know.
Andrew Tates and these crazy misogynistic people, and the local high school after the election. One of them was saying, some young men were walking down the hallway saying, your body, my choice. Yeah. Which is like bone chilling to me. And then in the same week, they had kids from the football team being baptized out on the football field. Now, I am all for people being baptized if they want to be baptized. The football
Right.
field in town is not the place that it should be happening, right?
No.
That's just not. So, there's a lot of craziness going on out there.
I
And
mean, there really,
it's
really
changed.
is. It's
I mean,
There's going to be pain before there's pleasure, I am sure. And this conversation is so layered because, you talk about men, today, and there's a lot of people out there that I don't have kids. I don't have kids. I can't even imagine bringing up kids today. I just, I think it is just a
it's a little
nightmare
scary.
with social media, with the lack of opportunities, with how expensive everything is. Like, I can't imagine having to um help a kid at this point in the journey be self-sufficient because they just seem like they have the deck stacked against them in so many ways now. And
The
meritocracy is
the transition from home to being on your own is longer.
oh
They have
yeah.
to help in order to transition. So
Yeah.
I believe that COVID had a lot to do with the breakdown of religion,
Yeah.
like the structure of organized religion.
Mhm.
I believe that was the catapult of it and the wake up call to them because, again, I go back to the numbers. They were very concerned about numbers. People, and still you will hear, I'll hear a lot of my, Christian nationalist people that I know. I don't necessarily call them friends, but people I know, their chatter is, well, no one's coming back. They're just not back in the seats. They got to get back in the seats. We got to get our numbers up. Got to get our numbers up. And so that still is a fear for them. But COVID, you cannot. I truly believe it's hard to separate when you're talking about religion from politics. Those two things go hand in hand because they're
I
both about
mean,
control.
they didn't used to
Um,
be. I mean, it wasn't
No,
right.
always
it
like
was same.
this.
It
This is
didn't.
a new thing.
But I do believe COVID caused a lot of people, me for one, to not trust our government.
Yeah. Yep.
I started going into, Duck, and all those web browsers that were secure because we're being watched. I mean, I did all of that to still try to communicate. And so I did not trust my government. I'll personally share, and I don't mind, I used to be a Republican. I am never going to be a Republican again. I can't necessarily claim I belong to a Democratic Party. I don't want to belong to either party. I'm an individual. I'm an individualist. I vote according to the person. If I
Independents
want
are like the
I'm an independent
yes.
voter all day long, because I have that right to
Yeah.
make my choices, and I have to be more educated. I can't just follow a group of people to go down this path or go down this path. I make my own choices. That caused me to do that, because I am also very much pro-choice. I am very much the government needs to stay away from my body. I did not get the shot. I will not call it a vaccination. It did not prevent anyone from getting COVID. I will call it a shot, just like a flu shot. No, and I truly believe human beings are smart. Whether they thought it in their brain, right, whether they thought it in their brain and it never came out of their mouth, they were questioning, why is this being pushed so hard on us? So it caused some uneasiness and some lack of trust with the government. I believe it backfired on the government. And so, I'm not going to be told what to do with my body. I have the right when I go to my doctor to refuse a medication he's wanting to give me. If he doesn't like that, then I will go to another doctor.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, I now see a naturopath
Oh yeah.
for my general health, right? I now see a naturopath who does all the muscle testing and all the cleanses that I need. And so I do believe that I was a Republican Christian. I was never a Christian nationalist.
Right.
No. My sons probably are, but that's a whole nother story. But I never was that way. So I have completely not even gone to the other side. I woke up and I was like, you don't have the right. If I want a gun in my house or not want a gun in my house, I have the right for that. We don't want anyone telling us what to do. And I do believe the majority of people are over that and there was a wake up. So I believe that is why organized religion is is moving out, and we're going to see more, um I don't want to call it religion based on spirituality, but it's going to be more of that turn. When I grew up, I remember as a teen, so that would have been in the 80s, it was like new age movement. Do you remember hearing
Oh
that?
yeah.
Oh, that's
It's still a
new age.
term that's
Oh,
floated out
that's
there.
new age,
Yeah. New age. Yeah.
right?
It's a misnomer,
Yeah.
but okay.
Well, now I believe that is, quote, coming back, but we're not getting a lot of resistance with it like we were in the 80s.
Be-
It's more open minded. So I believe organized religion, for the most part, will be going away, less and more spiritual based.
I agree. I also
Based.
think they're not going to go away without a fight. That's
Well,
the
Yeah.
problem.
I'm not
Yep.
sure everything is going to go away. Like, I do believe that there are some more, I don't know about in your areas, but in our areas, like, the Methodists and the Episcopalians and the Lutherans are all kind of like starting to build churches together because
Mhm.
they all believe, instead of making the box so small, it's more like
Right.
they've opened the box and they've said,
Right.
okay, everyone who wants to come, we can come and all worship together.
That is happening.
So,
I do believe that is more of an open mindset, though,
right,
to, to because within those different sects of beliefs, some are more spiritual minded,
right.
some are more ritual minded. So I believe, and I love that. I mean, I'm all for unity and all more people coming together as one.
Well,
I am.
God
all
never, intended for us to have all these different
for- oh,
denominations. Like that was never the so.
I
And going back to
mean,
what you were asked about for people who are trying to walk away from these situations, it was a process for me. I didn't just wake up one day and decide I wasn't going to do that anymore. It was like a lot of little things, the misogyny and the trauma and I was still in those communities for a long time. And my relationships with them felt so shallow because they were so inauthentic. And
yeah,
so you gotta think to yourself, what am I really losing if
right,
they like me because I'm presenting what I think they want to see? Well,
right.
if they really knew who I am and what I think and what my beliefs are, if they wouldn't want to be close to me, then they don't really want to be my friend. They
yeah.
don't want to really be, close to me. So then I would say, once you've made that break, you go find the people that you can
Right.
be the fullest version of yourself that
Right.
that you can possibly be,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you can be authentic, where you can be honest, where you can talk about your hopes and your mistakes and not worry that if you share some of your mistakes, people suddenly won't allow you in
Right.
their,
Yeah.
your group. So
Everyone should experience unconditional love and acceptance.
Yes.
That's what you should
yes,
be looking for in your circle of trust is unconditional love and acceptance and the ability to be your authentic self
right.
and be
Yes.
comfortable in your own
Yes.
skin and feel
And it's
Yes.
loved.
healthier.
Yeah.
It's so much
Yeah.
healthier.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's better for you.
Well, on that note, that seems like a good note to start wrapping it up here, guys.
Yeah.
I loved this conversation. I'd like to do it again. The more you start demystifying spiritual awakenings and near death experiences, like
Right.
Charity, I have a long, long, long friend of mine who had a near death experience when we were kids, and it really mentally messed with him for most of his life. His parents put him in
Oh.
therapy, blah, blah, blah. He never told
Mm.
me about it. I've known him since I was like 5 years old. He didn't tell me until I started this podcast.
Wow.
And I
Mm.
was really learned then that there are a lot, I think, of people out there that experience things like near death experiences
Yes.
that change their perceptions of what we are. And yet they feel traumatized by it. They feel like
Right.
alone. They feel they can't tell anybody. His parents kind of thought that he was experiencing mental unwellness issues. So I'm commend you for coming out and telling your
Right.
story, especially since you came from such a lockdown, closed out
Yes.
mode to bridge the gap and release yourself from those belief systems is something to really commend yourself and be proud of
Hey.
yourself for, because it's not an
Yeah.
easy journey to lose your whole
Try.
comfort zone. Yeah, your whole comfort zone.
Hey, it's called freedom, baby. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
it's
right.
called freedom.
That is true.
Yeah.
True story there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so ladies, thank you so much. Amy,
You.
we'll be doing this again,
We will.
you know. Alrighty guys,
Um,
I hope
yeah.
you enjoyed this episode of Fate from Atheism to Enlightenment. Thank you, Charity, for coming on and sharing your
Thanks for
story.
having me.
Come back
Mhm.
anytime. Amy, I
Thank
love
you.
you. And I'm so grateful that we have a new relationship that is only going to get deeper, better, and grow. So love you guys. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week on Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. Don't hit your off buttons. We got to upload. Okay. Bye, everybody. And that is a wrap on this episode of From Atheism to Enlightenment. I hope you enjoyed the show today. I want to thank, well, my sister Amy, of course. I mean, it's always a pleasure to have her on the show. I am sure she will be back numerous times. Our relationship really is in a stage of growing and blossoming and almost getting to know each other in a different way, in a better way. It's more authentic, it's more comfortable. And even though we don't speak every single day, when we do speak, it is so much less strained, so much more authentic, close. And, I think Amy and I's relationship is going to continue to grow and flourish. And who knows, we could start working together in a myriad of other ways. It's sky's the limit for me and Amy in the future, but she'll definitely be back on the show. And I'd like to thank Charity for coming on and sharing her story of spiritual awakening, her near-death experience, and her transition from the church to a more spiritual-based way of living her life. I mean, I can't imagine being who she was, having grown up in the church, gone to school at the Church of Christ, having all of her friends at the Church of Christ, and being such a prominent figure in the church, having a near-death experience, and then it completely transforming everything for her. So it's a big deal to leave a church like that when you've been so invested in it for so long, with your family, with your friends. And it is an extremely judgmental, my way or the highway kind of environment. I grew up in it. I I don't know if I'm capable of having peer pressure, but I just didn't succumb to the whatever. But everybody's different, and I'm sure there was a point in her life, just like there was a point in Amy's life, where both of them felt very comfortable and very secure and very right in how they were thinking, feeling, and believing. And it's only through something like a near-death experiences that really wakes you up and makes you understand that maybe you don't have it all figured out and that there is something else going on other than what you thought. So I think these stories are important. I think I'm going to continue to tell them on this podcast and invite people to understand that you're not alone. So if you're struggling out there with your own spiritual awakening, or you're in a church environment that seems to not align with your core being, then I encourage you to step out of it, step forward, take baby steps, find a new tribe, find a community that aligns with you. Don't get stuck in a situation where you are feeling trapped, or you're feeling church should be something that gives you a sense of unconditional love, a soft space to land, open arms from everyone around you. It shouldn't be a space where you feel like you have to put a mask on and behave a certain way or you're going to be ousted. And that's how I felt when I was around church people. And I knew a lot of them outside of church, and the way that they would walk, talk, and act when you're sitting in the pew, and the way that they would walk, talk, and act when they're not in their church environment, a lot of times weren't the same people. They were not the same. They didn't act the same. They didn't have the same mannerisms. They would say words that they wouldn't say in the church. Like, it's just not from my experience, it's just not everybody. It wasn't a very authentic place to be. It was a place of judgment, and everybody's looking at you, and you better say and act the right way, or you are going to be judged, talked to, whatever. Anyways, well done, Charity, for having the strength to walk away, to create a new version of you that is going to be more authentic, and you're going to be a much, much happier person. So I wish her well. And we had an awfully long conversation, so I'm not going to do the outro very long, but I hope it helped somebody, and I hope that this podcast continues to expand your mind, raise your vibration, and open you up to new and different perspectives. So, with that, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I am at F.A.T.E podcast. Follow me. I'm starting to post more. I'm starting to be more interactive with social media. So, find me on Instagram. Follow me. Reach out if you have any questions, comments, concerns about this episode. And we will see you next week on Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. And welcome to your fate, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.